G'day once again, Melbourne Storm fans. Welcome to the second instalment of the Graveyard Shift. It is myself, Dubs, and the Pole Man joining me once again. And after a successful first outing last week during this COVID isolation lockdown, we are back on the YouTube airwaves to talk everything Melbourne Storm. And well, Pole Mate, we're miles away from the action up there in North Queensland. And is that you up in our new dressing rooms there, mate?
Yeah, it is. I've decided to change the background this week. I really wanted to get our home Victoria, that V in the back. And when I put that one, it was behind my head. So I found this picture of the dressing room. It is the, not exactly the dressing room, but I guess it's the hallway there at the Sunshine Coast Stadium. So it's good to see the Storms decked out. It's like what were we saying, Dubs? It's like the Victorian Embassy. So although it's not in Victoria, it's sovereign Victorian land at the moment. Sunshine Coast Stadium is our home at the moment, and good to get a win up there, and massive crowd on the weekend.
Fantastic.
Looks like they're not doing social distancing in Queensland anymore because those hills were absolutely packed. But no, it was good to see. It was good to see all the Sunshine Coast public getting behind the team.
Yeah, and good on them too. And I have to say, it's never going to be perfect. But listening to the TV broadcast and hearing the crowd reaction in the background, I really felt that it was a fairly parochial Melbourne Storm crowd. So I know that we've had a bit of a Queens Clan connection through our club for the past few years. So maybe there's a little bit of that remnant up there. I know they've always, Queenslanders have got a lot of love for Cameron Smith, Cooper Cronk, Billy Slater for the years, and others for the years of successful origin that they had up there. But I like to say I was very impressed with the size of the crowd, the enthusiasm. Sunshine Coast, of course, doesn't have a professional rugby league team. There's one a few hours south at the Gold Coast. But suffice to say, maybe they wanted to send a message that actually that can be a rugby league town as well. So I'm certainly happy to have that affiliation going while we can't be at Amy Stadium in Melbourne. And as you say, it was a great first outing. So let's dive straight into that. We did say we didn't expect it would be perhaps as tight and gritty as the previous couple of weeks. Nevertheless, any game is tough as long as you've got to go out there and compete. So your thoughts on the result?
I guess the game went sort of as expected. The Gold Coast did put up a good fight for the first, 20-odd minutes. They scored that try, leveled it up. Bit of a interesting try they scored too at that push, but to the letter of the law, I guess it was a fair try. But then I think once we sort of I really felt it was that first try after the second half, I think just broke them. Once they sort of got 2-3 tries away from us, I think our class and we were just too good. I think we mentally broke them early in that second half. Great performances by Munster. Just amazing. That pass he threw for that Adokar try was awesome.
Exceptional.
Nelson was probably man of the match. I looked up the stats afterwards. He ran something like 150, 160 metres coming off the bench as well.
For a guy that size, that's incredible.
Yeah, and first time he scored a double, scored two almost very similar tries, just barging over the line. Really good game, and our bench was fantastic, I thought. Everyone on the bench really made a big impact. I think Bellamy has a few, especially that forward pack. There's a lot of competition for spots there in that forward pack, which is, I guess, is good for the team. So, overall good win. Got the 2 points and, look to the next game now. So
I'm definitely going to agree with all that assessment there. And some of our Storm supporting friends that we chat to, perhaps feeling that Bellamy's selections at the moment possibly not the optimal starting lineup, and not in a critical way, but more in a will that be what we see come the pointy end of the season? Looking at Brandon Smith starting at prop and Big Nelson, of course, on the bench, a little bit of a controversial call, especially since Big Nelson was just absolutely devastating on the weekend. I've got to say, though, in terms of changing a win, I'm not convinced that that's the right thing to do just yet. So I'd love to see Brandon Smith getting some more starting game time. It was a little bit of a surprise to me at first. If you told me a year ago Brandon Smith in the number 8 jersey, I would have said, unlikely unless we'd lost half the team, but there he was, and once again performing admirably. So the return of Munster was a huge tick. Clearly that knee injury, which could have been a lot worse and a lot more of an extended absence, wasn't as devastating as we'd originally thought it might have been. He got through really nicely. He's clearly a pivotal playmaker for us. Selection headaches in the forward pack, because right now you're looking at that starting forward pack, and you could easily flip it with some of the players on the bench. So difficult to know exactly what Bellyache will do come final series, assuming we're still fortunate enough to make it into a prominent finals position. But the first thing I noted actually tuning into the broadcast, and one thing about being people who like to attend games who can't at the moment, you do probably pay attention a lot more to TV analysts at the moment. And the comment was the comments prior to kickoff were pretty much the same thing. It was along the lines of Gold Coast have a bit of a couple of decent attacking options, but their defense is really suspect. And if Melbourne can break that open, they'll run away comfortably, which is pretty much exactly how it played out. Gold Coast put up a real brave front for about 20 minutes and was actually surprised the game wasn't higher scoring in the first 20 minutes. But the damn wall broke probably just before half time, and really after the break, the flood came. So good for points differential. It certainly gave us a little bit of a boost there as well, because we'd had so many close finishes. Yep. And now we're sort of firmly ensconced in the top four and making a good case for finishing top two, which will set us up nicely for the end of the season if we can hold on to that.
And I think just going back to our props, I think Brandon Smith, yes, I was very surprised when I saw he was named number 8 last week. But I guess looking at Brandon, he gives you that versatility that he can slot into hooker if he needs to.
Yeah.
So maybe that sort of is what swayed Craig Bellamy. And I did watch the post-match, as you know, I did watch the press conference with Bellamy afterwards.
At the end of the day, you always do.
Yeah, and just on that, just 0 at the end of the day. Like, I think I've jinxed it.
You have. You've ruined it in the first show.
So I did ruin it in the first show. But anyway, so he did mention Nelson is still, I think, not at full fitness yet in terms, he's a big guy. And one of my observations of Nelson coming back from the break, obviously he's had the hamstring injury. I believe it was hamstring. I just thought he was carrying a little bit more weight. Like he wasn't looking as lean as he usually does. So, but I mean, he's kidding back. He's coming back to form. He's getting fit. He's going to be. I mean, here he is, really, looking good. But he's going to get even better as the season goes on. So,
and I can't see a downside in spending a few weeks getting Big Nelson absolutely primed and chomping at the bit to be starting. So, I see this as a very positive move by Bellamy, but that's just me, ever the optimist on this. And also, look, if worst case scenario is that we're using Nelson as an impact player, well, what an impact player! He's incredible coming off the bench, as those numbers suggested.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, I was watching was it Freddie and the Eight on YouTube, and can't remember if it was either Johns or FitLab. One of them named Nelson in their team of the week. So it shows you that obviously he's not just turned Storm fans' heads this week, but he's obviously, everyone else has sort of stood up, I think, took notice that, hey, Nelson's back, and he's back in a big way. So,
well, he's always had a bit of cult figure status, and that's certainly not a knock on him. It's just that he's been very popular with Storm fans from early on, a bit like the way Brandon Smith has. There's often in that kind of cult status, there's something about them that catches people's eyes, whether it's the fact that he is so big and they love to see him crash into his opponents, or it's the fact that Brandon Smith, who comes across as almost like a little guy by comparison, who can just gain such incredible meters through sheer brute force. A bit like how Billy Slater was, they used to talk when he first came up, the former jockey who was playing rugby league. So often, and it's so pleasing when those cult figures who start out perhaps having, a section in the crowd who love them, or they pop up on a highlights reel every once in a while, when they start to become really established players. It's such a great thing to see, because it shows that what those fans were seeing in them, that little bit of potential, that little bit of thrill that they saw, is actually starting to come to fruition.
Speaking of Brandon Smith, actually, a couple of weeks ago, I've stumbled upon a video of him when he was 16. He was at the Warriors Academy. No, 16. I think he was 16. He was moving to Australia. He moved to Australia away from his parents, somewhere in Queensland, to pursue his rugby league dream in his career. So you see, and I think pretty sure he comes from a pretty sort of working class family. To see a kid from, and a family to make such a huge sacrifice at such a young age, and for him to actually make it and become a Kiwi international, I think it's really great to see that happen as well. And if you can go on YouTube, guys, and look it up, Brandon Smith, 16. He's got a very, he's a bit of a joker. He's a bit of a character around Melbourne Storm, but he definitely has his head screwed on. You can see it in that interview. He's very, very motivated, very driven. So, yeah, he's a great asset to our team.
And that motivation and drive took him to wearing the number 8 jersey on Saturday night in that big Melbourne Storm win. So that is fantastic. Paul, mate, we'll have to wrap up the match wrap this week, and let's move on to some viewer questions, because I believe we've had a couple of subscribers who have come on to the graveyard shift, which is fantastic. 2 subscribers. We have made huge leaps and bounds. At this rate, we'll have 4 by next week, and we'll practically be a national syndicated audience. But thank you to those who have subscribed so far, and those who have viewed, who might be viewing again. Do click that subscribe button. We'd love to hear more feedback, because I believe we've had our very first viewer question during the week, mate.
Yeah, so after our first show, Aaron on the Storm Family Facebook page asked us what our thoughts were on Kenny Bromwich. So let me just pull up the quote here. So what are your thoughts on Kenny formed last couple of weeks, even 2020 as a whole? In 2019, he averaged over 90 metres a game, and I think those numbers helped him crack the starting side. Well deserved. But this year, and he says that he's a huge Kenny fan. But this year's averaging 69 metres for 2020, and I'm just noticing a few penalties and a few missed chances. So thanks for that, Aaron. We appreciate giving us a question. So I looked, so first thing, I was keeping an eye on Kenny, and I thought he had played a really good game this week in particular. And when I looked up his stats afterwards, he actually ran 110 metres this week. So when you look at the stats, probably his best game of the season. I think there was 2 handling errors in there as well. So, hopefully he starts improving. And you're right. I think he has to step up too, because as we've said before, there's so much competition in our forward pack at the moment that if you aren't sort of racking up the meters, and if you aren't tidy with your handling and all of that, and if you are giving away stupid penalties, then you might find yourself on the bench. But I think definitely Saturday was a plus for him. Hopefully he just continues that throughout the rest of the season. What do you thought?
Absolutely. Yeah. Aaron, I'm going to completely agree with you. I'm a big Kenny Bromwich fan as well. I was really pleased to see him take the number 12 jersey for most, if not every game this season. And I think Bellamy's definitely rewarded that kind of consistency from previous years. And he's always been a handy sort of impact player as well. In the, I think, 16 to 18 in the 3 grand final seasons we had, he was regularly coming off the bench. He'd pop up with an occasional try, a line break. So he's always had a role within a Bellamy coach side. And I felt that he probably was offering as much as anyone coming off the bench. So good to see him get that opportunity. As to whether he keeps it, well, I don't think Craig will be dropping him immediately. I think even though it's true that he probably hasn't consistently maintained that output throughout the year, there's probably a few who are guilty of that. And I think maybe, not suggesting we give a pass to anyone based on the unusual season, but I think we do need to try and stay the course on this one. I also think he provides a nice contrast to some of the much bigger, brutish forwards that we have, in that he is quite skillful with his hands. He's quite quick for a guy who's pretty solid. And in playing internationally for New Zealand in the past, he has actually been quite useful playing out of dummy half. So he has a little bit of creativity, which isn't something that you too often associate with someone playing in the second row. I'm a big fan of Kenny. I think that maybe last weekend was the kind of game he needed to get his confidence back up a little bit, to know what feels good for him. And I'm cautiously optimistic that he'll start to get that form a little bit more consistently. But it's definitely true that he hasn't had the same output that we might have hoped coming off 2019.
Yeah, but I have to agree with you on that, Dubs. So you're right. He does add that little bit more of those. Yeah, he's more of a ball playing forward. So
absolutely. He could have been a halfback in a different life, but perhaps a little bit too chunky for that. Let's move on, mate, to some more broad NRL results and news. So the Storm were winners. That's the most important W that comes out of the weekend. But the others, what did we see? Were there any shocks, surprises? And how does the table look as we press on to the true midpoint of the season?
Going back a week now. So the Raiders had a good win over the Roosters, the grand final week. And I must say, I do think Ricky Stewart is a sook. And even before this game, he was complaining that they wanted a hotel the night before. NRL said no. They wanted to fly. NRL said no. So it seemed like he had all his excuses before the game. But they still got up and won. And I think Ricky Stewart, what he's probably good at is, probably with this Raiders team in particular, he probably just, creates that us versus them mentality. And I think that's why they're so hard to beat. It's like us against the world. Then Storm, we got this bad call against us, and now they won't let us have a hotel against the Roosters, So, he uses it, I guess, to mobilize his troops. So, I mean, each to their own. Then we obviously moved on to Friday. we had the 42-6 over the Titans.
Oh, that one
Yeah,
is
what do you
painful
say
reading.
about the Broncos? I watched the highlights. I mean, it's enough has been said about them, but some of the tries they let in, it's just you don't see that in the NRL. Like, it was so bad.
It goes deeper, surely, than just bad form. There's something not
Yeah.
quite right. And I just am slightly cautious about that because, you can't keep a champion down forever. And at some point, perhaps even in a Broncos versus Storm game, that form might
Yeah.
reverse. So that's something we've got to be cautious about.
Yeah.
Oh, the doggies.
And the
They
Dogs, again, if anyone
just
watched the
can't take a
highlights
joke.
there, they snatched what's the saying? They snatched the
Snatch
beat out
defeat
of
from the jaws of victory.
Again, a couple of comical errors towards the end of the game basically gifted the Dragons the win there. I feel sorry for the Dogs. Of obviously Dean Pay quit, and there's a lot of turmoil
Yeah,
going
after
on. They've had a
we
rough.
thought
They've had a rough season.
last week we were talking about the fact that we didn't think he'd necessarily be off, and I think he departed a matter of hours after we recorded our first show, and after Craig, of course, was going into bat for him. I think quite rightly, because Dean is well thought of by Craig and by the Melbourne Storm broadly. So you never like to see that. It's a rough year for the Doggies. Clearly,
a lot of the pundits, the experts you see on all those panel shows, a lot of them are talking about there's a lot more behind the scenes politics at the Bulldogs at the moment. And so I don't think really Dean Pay is the man people should be pointing the finger at. I think he was just the
convenient fall guy.
The sacrificial goat,
sacrificial lamb.
Scapegoat.
So. Scapegoated sacrificial lamb.
That's it. Yeah, I mixed up the two. Then we had the Knights get over the Bunnies. The Knights
important win that, shaping the top 8.
Yeah, the Bunnies came back. Was too little, too late. Now this has been my favourite game of the whole season, Dubs. So there was two in the first half. There was two 40-20s. There was two more 40-20. They were just going. It was a 40-20 shootout in the first half. It was just great to watch. And I think the 40-20 is the most underrated thing in the NRL. I mean, finally rugby union caught on, and they've added a 50-22 or something. But
settle down there. You will give you a chance to rant about the 40-20s.
So there was a lot of 40-20s. Good game, but yeah, Rabbits too little, too late. Manly upset win over the league leaders.
Manly over Para. Finally, Manly does something useful for us.
And again, I was talking up how Manly are useless without Trbojevic, and next week they
heard
knock
you,
off
clearly.
the league leaders. So what do I know? But good win for Manly. It's good for us too, because we're only behind Para now by 1 point difference.
If only they hadn't let in a late try.
Yeah, exactly. So that was probably the upset of the round. And then Sharks smashed the Warriors. Not much to talk there. I mean, pretty
stock standard result as we expected.
Yeah. And then the Panthers got over the Cowboys. I must admit, I watched a lot of this game, and I thought the Cowboys really put up a good fight for most of the game. They just got outclassed at the end. And then Paul Green walks this week, another coach gone. So
another one gone. It's 2 on the chopping block this week, or perhaps not the chopping block, 2 who have chopped themselves off this week.
Yeah, exactly.
So, difficult times. Not really a fun time to be on the NRL coaching merry-go-round. But in fairness, Paul Green, I thought he was quite graceful in his interview that he'd said that he had good memories and that he'd been a part of those 2 grand final sides, including the club's first premiership. So good for him. His time in the game is clearly not done, and it's just interesting to see where he pops up. I'm sure the media will speculate, just like they did, that every time Craig sneezes, it's a sign that he must be heading somewhere else apart from Melbourne Storm in the future. But we talked ad nauseum about that last week, so let's move on to a happier topic.
All right, and just quickly, the ladder, as we know, we've got the Panthers there. So we're sitting third here, off points different, 1 point in points difference behind Para, 1 point behind the Panthers. So we're sitting quite nicely. We've opened up a bit of a gap to 4th and 5th, which is good to see. Interesting, the race for the finals. I think top 6, you'll see them playing finals. And I really think it's the Tigers, Rabbits, Sharks, and Sea Eagles that will be fighting for that those final 2 spots.
Hence why Newcastle knocking off the Rabbitohs in that close one was such an important win, because if you look at the potential difference there, South Sydney really hurting themselves in that finals race, because they're now falling away from the top 4 and really just clinging onto the top 8.
Yep. And the Dragons might, if they have a few good results, but I don't think the Dragons will probably feature. They might get close. And the other teams, well, I think they've all sacked coaches apart from the Titans and the Broncos there. So
give them time.
All right, Dubs. So that was the quick wrap up. Should we look at next week's match?
Let's look at next week's match. So, who have we got coming up? This is an
Well,
interesting one because we were sympathising with them a
here we
moment
go.
ago, but I wouldn't be offering too much sympathy this week because this was once upon a time, and to some extent still is, a bit of a rivalry, a bit of a derby clash in NRL terms. Storm and the Broncos going back to the
Yeah.
early to mid 2000s, a bit of a fierce rivalry opened up. So, not too often that you'd see 14th next to the Broncos name and those ridiculously long odds, which, dare I say, the cautious one in me suggests they're probably a little bit closer than that because this is a club that's hurting. And when your backs are against the wall, sometimes you come out and really play above yourselves.
And
So
I
how do
mean,
you make this one
if
out?
this team was wearing any other jersey and had any other name than the Brisbane Broncos, I'd be like last week. Yeah, easy win. But just because it's the Brisbane Broncos, you think, well, this is the Broncos. They've got to pull something out
Something's got to
soon.
give.
But in saying that, they're really bad. Like, I can't see us losing this. I feel this game might go similar to last week, where they might, come out of the gates firing. If we can sort of, weather those first 10, 15 minutes and sort of, open up a gap early, then I think mentally they've been very weak mentally as soon as they go behind. I mean, there was that game where they were up like 20 points against Manly at halftime and they ended up losing. So they're mentally very weak, or they have been
frail.
very weak. Again, I just think if we can open up a bit of a gap early, I think that will be all she wrote. So
I'm inclined to agree with you on that one. I think
yeah.
this is one where if we can't stamp our authority early, you just let them in, you just make them believe, and then suddenly things become dangerous. But if we can, just go out and brutalize the first 10 or 15 minutes, it could end up being quite a comfortable, manageable game after that. So you never know. But certainly I hope that our fears are proven to be unfounded.
And the big talk, let's have a quick look at the lineup. We've got, obviously, the backs are unchanged. Momirovski's doing all right. Brinko Lee's
Yeah, doing quite well
try.
for somebody whose name wasn't exactly on our lips a few weeks ago with Big Sully out. But credit to Momirovski, a couple of tries in his first game and pretty reliable since then.
Olam's been. I really love Olam. I love his.
Yeah,
energy.
I'm a fan of Olam. I'm really becoming a fan of him.
Goes at them hard. A bit like Marcus Bai in the in the old days. He just gets the ball and goes hard.
Well, we needed a good replacement for Will Chambers after we lost him. Of course, the experience that he brought over all those years. So far, Olam's looking pretty solid.
I see they've named Brodie Croft at 5'8" this week. Actually, I didn't notice that till now. Actually,
I actually noticed that when the lineups came out and scratched my chin a little bit. So anyway, they've made that decision. I'd suspect Brodie will have a point to prove. He obviously was given a pretty good run as starting halfback for the Storm. It didn't work out as well as we'd have liked, but these things sometimes don't. So he's playing his trade in Brisbane now. Wish him well in any game except this weekend.
Yeah. And the forwards, obviously, we've talked a bit about them. We've got Brandon Smith, Christian Welsh starting as props. Kafus and Kenny in the locks, and the second row, and Finucane locking the scrum. Interchange, we've got, this is where it's interesting. We've got Tino, Albert, Marion, and Nelson. So,
Tino and Nelson will be itching to get more game time. As soon as anyone in that forward pack slips up, metaphorically or physically, Tino and Nelson will be absolutely putting their hand up for those positions. And we knew what Nelson could do. And I think the real breakout player in a Storm sense this year has been Tino. He's just been fantastic. And he's been great to watch because there's a little bit of similarity, that big size, that big strength, carry, smashing into packs. I think there's a lot to like in our squad this year. In a sense, it actually feels better balanced than it did over the last couple of years where 2018, we obviously made it to the grand final and flopped on the big day. In 2019, we just weren't quite right in that first final, and it hurt us badly in that series. But I think there's a lot to like about the team balance this year, particularly now that we've managed to figure out our fullback, halfback, and 5'8" positions as well, with Jerome slotting in at number 7 and Papa at fullback. So yeah, be very interested to see what these guys can do.
Yeah, and hopefully that combination can sort of stick and gel even more. And I think that's what really cost us in those 2 seasons. We had a great team, but we just couldn't get settled on that number 7 position. And hopefully we've finally got the combination right moving forward.
Let's hope so, especially with Munster back at 5'8" for that creativity as well. It takes a bit of the pressure off Hughes to be that, and obviously Cam Smith sometimes as well, to be that main focal point for creative play.
Exactly. Yep.
Excellent. I also believe we have recently unveiled our Indigenous jersey for 2020.
That is true. So let me just, I'll bring that up. So yeah, so I believe.
Sorry, I put you on the spot there, Mr. Pole, but just a bit of background, of course.
A bit of club news. I'm pretty sure that we're wearing it this Friday. I
believe so, but we're a little bit out of the loop down here, folks. Sorry, we're sometimes second on the news cycle, being Victorians during lockdown. There we go. A few of us have already spoken about that, and I think one of the comments from one of our mates was it makes the gold really pop, which I'm absolutely going to agree with. I reckon that is one of, if not the best Indigenous jerseys we've done. I really like it for a few years now. The major codes in Australia have, and I think they're a great innovation. Josh Adokar, of course, Indigenous superstar at the Storm. And I just think there's a lot to like about that. It blends our colours. It has still the sense of the V in Victoria, and obviously brings in the Indigenous artwork on there, which I just think comes across really nicely. And it's great to see some of that traditional Melbourne Storm gold that always hinted a little bit in old jerseys coming back as well. So, really looking forward to seeing that on all the players this weekend.
I mean, I'm a bit disappointed our normal, our regular home jersey doesn't have gold on it. So it's good to see, gold on this one. And I watched the a video of the artist actually explaining what it all means. So this circle here in the middle is supposed to be Amy Park and the players, I believe. I mean, go watch the video yourself, because I'll probably make a mistake here. But then these yellow circles around are supposed to be the fans. So I really like that.
That's us.
The artist actually thought, let's include the players and the fans. We're all one. And you've got the emu prints going up the side here. And obviously as an emu never walks backwards. So it's sort of meant to symbolize us moving forward. So there's a lot of meaning and symbolism into the jersey as well, which I think is pretty cool. Yeah. So I think it's the best Indigenous jersey they've had. So I really like it.
I really like that as well. And I liked your explanation there too. So definitely go and check that video out as well. It's always nice to know what the story is behind the symbolism and what the players are trying to represent. Also a big personal a real personal element to it for Josh Adokar. You can probably see there at the bottom of the clip, Melbourne Storm will play tribute to champion boxer, the late Wally Carr, who was the grandfather of Josh Adokar, next week in the Indigenous round. So a nice little side note there, and an extra bit of incentive and motivation for Josh. Not that he needs much. He's already in blistering form at the moment, but I'm sure that's an extra special moment for him.
More face plants. We want more face plants. There was one out of two on the weekend. So
yeah, he's been talking about fixing his technique to make sure he doesn't face plant as badly. It's definitely something he's got to work on, because at one point he's going to end up with a broken nose for trying to celebrate one of his big tries.
Yeah. All right. One other thing I wanted to mention, Dubs, it obviously looks like Storm. I think Craig Bellamy earlier in the week came out and said we're pretty much on the Sunshine Coast for the remainder of the season, which is really disappointing. I was, I really miss going to live games. I'm sure you do as well, and every Storm fans. And so I just thought I'd throw that in there. Disappointing, but I mean, it's the reality of the situation. So,
and it is good to know that we'll have some continuity, so the players at least know where they're going to be, and they have the same training facilities. They can be in the same place. They're not on a bus every 5 minutes, and they're not wondering and they're not calling their families and going, "I'll let you know as soon as I know." I don't know if I can see it. At least there's some kind of solid continuity for them, so it will help them settle. And look, this is a horrible situation, but as the old saying goes, this too will pass. One day we'll be telling our grandchildren about, mate, you think live sport's tough these days? We had to go a whole year without watching it. It's our life. So we can be grumpy old men one day and talk about how 2020 COVID robbed us of our beloved Storm and our great fun that we have watching live sport. But something that we won't be robbed of is a new segment I'm introducing here. Given your love of coming up with obscure references and fun things to talk about, we're going to have our first edition of Pole's Ponderings. So, mate, you tell us about what you've chosen as your pondering topic this week. It's something NRL related, and it's something that perhaps doesn't get talked about nearly enough in Europe.
Well, as I've hinted earlier, well, not hinted, I blatantly obviously stated that I love 40-20s. I just think it's the best thing that came out of Super League. Did Storm come out of Super League?
It is the best thing that came out of Super League.
We were started by the guy who was heavily involved in Super League. But anyway, it's the best thing that came out of Super League. And, so Dubs, you and I always were at the games. We want to see the 40-20s. But anyway, it's a bit controversial. The NRL needs to clarify exactly what constitutes a 40-20. So now I need to share my screen here. So where were we again? Let's get rid of this team lineup. So if you look at the NRL official stats, so this is our 40-20 count here. Now, before I say anything, it's very disappointing. There's no Melbourne Storm player on this list.
Yeah, we have not been good at 40-20s for a number of years. It's really disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, if there's one thing you can criticize our club about, lack of 40-20s, that's number one.
You have to go really, in my mind, back to the Brett Kamali days before I can think of a halfback who consistently nailed 40-20s. And, I don't, as great as Cooper Cronk was and even as good as Matt Orford was, I don't remember either of them being particularly notable for their 40-20 kicking. Maybe that's just my memory of it. But yeah, I just feel like we've got to seriously work on 40-20s in the future, because it is one of the best ways to get a repeat set deep in your enemy territory.
Yeah. In all seriousness, I don't know why we don't see more attempts. I'm being serious here. It is such if you are pinned in defence, and in other words, if your set's ending, or even if you're on the third or fourth tackle inside your 20, what's the worst? If you miscue the kick slightly, not if you bomb it out in the full, but if you miscue the kick slightly, worst case scenario is you've turned it over for a scrum somewhere around the 30s. Like, wouldn't you take that if you're deep stuck in defence and for a chance to get out? Exactly.
I really feel like I don't know if people feel it's a risk, or if the modern game people feel like there's just better options kicking, but I can't imagine why you wouldn't at least have a go at it. Just bounce it somewhere near the line and see what you can do. Worst can happen is you turn the ball over, which to be honest, you could do by dropping the ball in a pass anyway.
Yeah.
Enough turnovers happen without booting one out. Anyway, you and I are in agreement, but we're clearly not coaches. Although with enough job offerings opening up, we might have a job soon.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so you can see your Blake Green, Nathan Cleary leading the way with 2 this season. Now, just have a look. There's 9 players here that have kicked 40-20s, according to the official NRL. Now, if we go to Fox Sports 40-20 count, we can see, well, you can't actually see, but Josh Addercast, then there's 12 players accredited of kicking 40-20s. Where is the discrepancy? So I was watching it was the Gold Coast game last week before they played us. So you can see here, Jamal Fogarty's created 40-20. So what happened in that kick is he's kicked it. It's going out for a 40-20, but the Warriors player, like in desperation, sort of, I think, got a hand to it just before it went out. It still went out. The Titans got the ball. So it effectively was his 40-20. So NRL, you need to clarify what's going on. Peter V'landys, I know you're watching. Is it a 40-20? Does it have to go clean out, or can, if it's forced, or is it like a forced 20-20? Is it like tennis, like an ace, where it has to go clean through, like can't even nick the
top of the racket, take a tiny bit of a string on the way through?
We're talking about video refs. We're talking about sort out the 40-20s, all right?
Yeah, let's be honest.
That's the most, I think that's a real pressing issue at the NRL. So
curious.
Anyway, so
I'm gonna suggest that the NRL, given that they haven't credited it, views it as not a pure 40-20. But the fact that Fox, as a broadcaster and as a major network with these kind of resources to study these things, the fact that they're putting them in there, maybe they're trying to make a political statement about 40-20.
Oh, it is. Yeah. Yeah. So Fox and the NRL are just obviously
they're at loggerheads over this. Clearly, it's a serious issue. I'm going to be honest. I can't help but say that a 40-20 has to be a go out clean. I'm not suggesting that we don't credit the player with a great kick if he forces the mistake. Just like if you play the ball in goal and you force your opponent to knock it behind, you've essentially still won the line dropout. Even though you didn't actually he didn't have to do that. The ball might have gone dead otherwise. But in the same spirit, a 40-20. To me, it just has to be clean. Otherwise, you've had a great kick that's forced an error, in my words, which unfortunately doesn't have its own statistic. We don't have a probably 40-20. A 40-20 attempt causing a mistake. That just confused the statisticians. But
tennis has forced errors, unforced errors.
I'd say it's a forced error. If you kick so cleanly that you force the player to go and make a mistake, and the player would turn around and go, oh, hang on a minute. I don't deserve an error against me because I was trying to stop the ball going out. It's not my fault the kick was great. I just tried to stop it. So maybe we call that a forced error. If Jerome Hughes nails a kick perfectly and as somebody comes across for the Broncos and knocks it out with a metre to go before the line. We're calling that a great kick from Jerome Hughes, but I just can't award it 40-20.
Yeah. Anyway, Dubs.
We could go on about this forever, but I believe, my friend, you have some memes to show us before we wrap up.
Let's finish off with our memes this week. So, hang on, I'm just trying to look at the. I don't know. Doesn't matter about the order. Let's just get the memes.
Doesn't matter about the order, mate. We're 21st century millennials. We just go with whatever. Instant gratification memes, please.
Yep. All right. So this isn't really a meme, but I thought this was funny from Sportsbet. Queensland government has just announced the Broncos not allowed back until they test positive with some football ability.
Ouch.
There's been
That's
a lot
harsh,
of that.
but possibly warranted in this environment.
You know, last week they won a game and it sort of went quiet for a little bit, and then they got smashed again. So it's been all about the Broncos.
Yeah, poor old Broncos. What have we got next?
All right. Now this is a bit of news. So we meant, so I don't know if you heard the Toronto Wolfpack. I'll talk a little bit more about them, but they've obviously gone bust. So they were playing, Toronto and Canada playing in the English Super League, or the European Super League, because there's teams in France there as well. And so Sonny Bill's, coming out, and apparently the Roosters are going to sign him, which I think is, how do you fit Sonny Bill into your team, in a team like that? Like, I don't know how they've got that under the salary cap. But anyway, this is a good meme sort of expressing that. So
I feel like the meme speaks volumes for itself.
Yep. Here we go. Queensland NRL coach sacked.
Ouch.
Not me, folks, but thanks for looking. Yep.
Yes, that meme will possibly not age well if things continue the way they're going.
Exactly. And another one from the Wolfpack. So
here we go. Mickey Rooney.
Yep. So just a bit on the Wolfpack, like I've actually started following them, not following them obviously, but I first heard about them about a year or two ago. So they're obviously a team in Canada that's playing in the English Super League. They're now in the Super League, but they didn't start in the Super League. The league and the English Rugby League said to them, like, well, you want a club, you got to start from pretty much the bottom of their league system. So for those that don't know, English Rugby League has promotion relegation, a bit like the English Premier League and a lot of the soccer/football leagues. So they had to start in like League One, which is 2 below the Super League. They got promoted. They won that league. The next year they finished first, but they lost the playoffs. So then they was still in the second division, and then finally they got into the Super League. And they're playing basically. They had to like pay for all the away teams to come out to Canada and play. So they've invested a lot of money into this. So I kind of really feel for them. Their club that they've had to shut up shop now due to the COVID-19. So anyway,
it's bitterly disappointing. And although I am smiling during that genuinely sad story, I can't stop laughing at Mayor Quimby insisting that they don't give any money back. So if you know the episode of The Simpsons there is a bit of a giggle. But sorry to see the Toronto Wolfpack go. It's a fantastic name.
And hopefully they'll be back once, COVID's finished up.
Cross our fingers we can get some more Canadian rugby league teams up.
That's it. All right. Here we go. Paul Green.
Paul Green has had enough. Simpsons memes are fantastic. Yeah. Look, I think I made the comment earlier, he was quite graceful in his departing press conference, so I've been made a fool of there. But look, Paul Green probably read the tea leaves right, that it just wasn't the right time anymore. So welcome to Dumpsville, population you.
Yep. Oh, and this one, I don't know if anyone's watching the Panthers Cowboys game. There's a bit of a decent exposure. Billy Burns, I think, is the player, and
I believe the technical term is sneaky nut, or in this case, sneaky everything.
I'm surprised. I actually went back and watched the footage. I saw the photo first. It's literally like a split second, yet people were able to get it right on, and people noticed it. And I thought, wow, like,
anyway. And we were very decent about respecting his privacy, weren't we? Making sure that we went over it time and time again, because heaven forbid he might get his shorts pulled while he's playing a contact sport.
It's been blocked out here, so it's a family-friendly podcast. So there we go.
Yeah.
Here's a Storm one. Not really got to do with anything, but this is just a funny Simpsons moment, I guess. Yeah.
That's actually very, very funny.
Yeah. Anyway. And
the idea of Craig Bellamy going mad.
And this one came out before the Storm game last week, so although this one's pretty good as well.
I love it. It's only a shame we couldn't get enough space there to work on Apu talking about precisely what isn't a star. And maybe they are in Shangri-La, but not here.
Exactly. And that's all our memes for this week, Dubs.
Outstanding way to finish there, Mr. Poll. And I reckon that brings us to the close of episode 2 of the Graveyard Shift. So listeners, thanks very much for joining us once again. Yep. We will be back next week to hopefully review a big win against the Broncos and to see the Storm pushing for a real top 4 finish and a chance for that fourth. I have to be careful with how many premierships I say that we have for various reasons we won't go into. For that 4th premiership.
Oh, 6th.
For that, yeah. Let's be honest. Let's go for that, which would then be the 7th premiership for the Melbourne Storm. Anyway, let's leave that aside and just say the next premiership for the Melbourne Storm, mounting on it in 2020. It's a crazy old year, so why not?
Yeah, and if you do enjoy our podcast, guys, please subscribe, leave a comment, any questions, anything like that, or share it with your Storm friends, Storm mates.
Pop it in the group chat.
We want to try to get this out to as many Storm fans as we can. So, yeah, thanks a lot for watching and hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks. Bye.